So Wired magazine, with a fascinating article, Andy Greenberg wrote about it, about hacking into your car. Well, it turns out it can now be done remotely with interesting and devastating consequences. So first, let's go back and remember how this issue came up in the first place. And Greenberg writes about it. He says, in 2011, a team of researchers from the University of Washington and the University of California at San Diego showed that they could wirelessly disable the locks and brakes on a sedan. But those academics took a more discreet approach, keeping the identity of the hacked car secret and sharing the details of the exploit only with car makers. So at that point, we knew that the machinery inside the car could be hacked, a series of tubes inside the car. But we didn't know to what degree. Well, now Greenberg participated in an exercise where they hacked into his car. He's driving in a highway in St. Louis at 70 miles an hour, and he allows these guys in a completely different part of the country to hack into his car. But he didn't have to allow it, they just did it, right? But they were participating in the experiment together, so he knew it was coming. Now, the results of that are amazing. So let me quote Greenberg at length here. He says, though I hadn't touched the dashboard, the vents in the Jeep Cherokee started blasting cold air at the maximum setting, chilling the sweat on my back through the in-seat climate control system. Next, the radio switched to the local hip-hop station and began blaring Skilo at full volume. Now, this is already amazing, but so far not dangerous. Hold. Now, they picked the Jeep, by the way, because they did an analysis, two guys who are leading this project, and decided that Jeep was among the more vulnerable cars. Then they spent a long time, about a year, figuring out exactly how to get into the system, not by connecting to the dashboard, by doing it wirelessly, and they solved it. But they think that it applies to many of the cars, almost all the newer cars on the road today. So now, Greenberg continues about what happened to him in his car. I spun the control knob left and hit the power button, but to no avail. Then the windshield wipers turned on and the wiper fluid blurred the glass. Okay, well, now wiper fluid's in the glass. It's a little dangerous, but he's okay so far. He continues. As I tried to cope with all this, a picture of the two hackers performing these stunts appeared on the car's digital display, Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek, wearing their trademark tracksuits. Is that amazing? So your car starts going crazy, the fluid's coming on, the radio comes on, and then you see the picture of the hackers in your digital display inside your car. They're going, ha ha, we got your car. Okay, now get a load of what happens next. The result of their work was a hacking technique, what the security industry calls zero-day exploit, that can target Jeep Cherokees and give the attacker wireless control via the internet to any of thousands of vehicles. Their code is an automaker's nightmare, a software that lets hackers send commands through the Jeep's entertainment system to its dashboard functions, steering, brakes, and transmission, all from a laptop that may be across the country. Now, one of the guys, Charlie Miller, had given him a warning. He said, remember, as we do this, we're going to mess with your car and you are going to be on the road. So, quote, remember, Andy, no matter what happens, don't panic. I mean, he figures, oh, yeah, I mean, I got it. Okay, windshield wipers, maybe you lightly tap on the brakes. Maybe, but come on, really, is that going to happen? He's not going to panic. Until this. As the two hackers remotely toyed with the air conditioning, radio, and windshield wipers, I mentally congratulated myself on my courage under pressure. That's when they cut the transmission. Immediately, my accelerator stopped working. As I frantically pressed the pedal and watched the RPMs climb, the Jeep lost half its speed, then slowed to a crawl. This occurred just as I reached a long overpass with no shoulder to offer an escape. The experiment had ceased to be fun. So he then goes on to explain, tractor trailer is headed his way. They're honking. Cars are piling up behind him. There's nothing he can do. I actually think they went too far in the experiment. I mean, the way that I read it in Wired magazine, I was like, Jesus, man, there's got to be a way where you go, okay, let me take the car back over. And in fact, he does. He calls them in a panic. All ideas of being cool and calm are out the window that the hackers probably opened for him. And he calls him, he's like, okay, go, end of experiment. There's a truck coming, end of experiment, right? So now imagine if you're not doing an experiment and someone actually takes over your car maliciously. Now we know, it's not in dispute. It can be done. It has been done. All right, let's tell you more. As they explained, this wasn't the first time Miller and Valasek had put me behind the wheel of a compromised car. In the summer of 2013, I drove a Ford Escape and a Toyota Prius around a South Bend, Indiana parking lot while they sat in the back seat with their laptops, cackling as they disabled my brakes, honked a horn, jerked a seatbelt, and commandeered the steering wheel. Back then, however, their hacks had a comforting limitation. The attacker's PC had been wired into the vehicle's onboard diagnostic port, a feature that normally gives repair technicians access to information about the car's electronically controlled systems. Now, a mere 2 years later, that carjacking has gone wireless. Now, are there any limitations? A tiny amount. Now, first of all, if you can just simply cut the transmission, I mean, that world of trouble right there, right? But they might also be able to control the steering wheel. They say for now, they can only hijack the wheel when the Jeep is in reverse. They're working on hijacking the steering wheel when it is going forward. But they can also control the brakes, so what difference does it make? Either they can have the brakes not work, or they can slam on the brakes. So that's it. These cars are going to get hacked into, and obviously with possible devastating consequences. Now, could anybody do this between 2011 and today? Well, obviously they started doing it in 2011, and those two professors proved that it was possible. Could someone know that Chrysler cars were more susceptible to this earlier than that? Could they have done something with it? Well, at the time, for example, when Michael Hastings' accident happened, I'm not saying that happened to him, but several people, including Richard Clark, who was the head of counterterrorism for the United States, came out and said, oh yeah, you can obviously hack cars. So people inside the government apparently already knew this. And some of these hackers are working with the Defense Department. Now, the Defense Department understandably says it is to counteract this. You know, God forbid that hackers come in and start doing this. We got to know how to fight back against it. We got to make sure that it can't happen. But they've known about it for quite some time. And, you know, to what degree people have used it in the past? Unclear. Unclear. Okay. Now, let me give you a little bit more understanding of how they find the cars, too. Remember, they're not, the guys who did it, they were not in St. Louis. They were completely opposite end of the country. It's amazing. Their hack enables surveillance, too. They can track a targeted Jeep's GPS coordinates, measure its speed, and even draw pins on a map to trace its route. So if you can trace anybody's car in the country and then hack into their system and then control the car remotely, it's a recipe for disaster. So now, luckily, some forward-thinking politicians, and apparently they exist, are already on this. Wired has learned that Senators Ed Markey and Richard Blumenthal plan to introduce an automotive security bill today. That's when the article came out a couple of days ago, to set new digital security standards for cars and trucks, first sparked when Markey took note of Miller and Valasek's work in 2013. By the way, Miller and Valasek have been doing interesting, good work out in the open about this. They even went to a conference a couple of years ago, back in 2013, and said, look, we can hack into the car now. I mean, and at the time, the car makers and a lot of the other people in the industry, you know, dismissed them like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess if you're in the dashboard, you can hack into it. But I mean, what, is a mechanic going to do that ahead of time? Are they going to be in the car? Who cares? Now, not everybody in the automotive industry thought that, but unfortunately a lot of people did. Now they're going to go to the Black Hat Conference and they're going to show and display how they can do it remotely from anywhere in the country. People are paying a little bit more attention now. And good to see Ed Markey and Richard Blumenthal doing good work to try to get up ahead of this problem. But overall, it's frightening stuff, man. It's not science fiction. It's not conspiracy theories. It's real, and it's here.